I want to talk a bit about Ethereum. Ethereum hasn't been performing so well like Bitcoin so far. There is a lot going on with tokenization. What I wanted to ask you is, how do you see the value of new token and the tokenization developing in next year? Are we going to see a big boom of token as well?
I came up with some estimates of something like $24 billion could be flowing into just as a 20% of the market cap of precious metals, gold and silver ETFs in the US. But then when you really think about it, moving $10 billion into Bitcoin is actually not that easy, because who's going to sell all those Bitcoins to BlackRock or whoever might come?
I had Monaco-sized money in DeFi. Now I look back at it and go, that's completely insane. I dodged so many bullets. I dodged BlockFi, I dodged Celsius. I had so many bullets. Every single one of those big bullets I dodged. I'm not prepared to have more than 6 figures in crypto these days.
Where the crypto market is going in 2024. Is Bitcoin gonna go above 100,000? What's gonna happen to altcoin? Why Ethereum is underperforming? I've got so many questions for 2024, and I'm sure you have got them as well. It's not just about how much Bitcoin is gonna go up, if we can guess that, but what is gonna happening to Ethereum? Actually, what is happening to Ethereum? What about Matic and all these other altcoins? And also, the macro element, this is also quite important for the crypto market. So this is what today we are going to discuss. Well, joining me today is Clem Chambers, CEO of Online Blockchain, and Markus Thielen, founder of 10x Research and author of the book Crypto Titans. Before we get into the discussion, I'm going to ask you one thing. If you are not part of our community yet, please join. Click the subscribe button. Follow us on social media. Not just to stay up to date with our news and interviews, but also to give us feedback. I want to increase our community. And also I have a commitment to engage more with the people that are following us. That's why we are creating a FinancialFox club, a community that we are going to be doing lots and lots of things with. And I'm very excited about it. But what you can do right now is really get into our community, follow us, and start to engage. If we haven't answered a question that you might have got about, expectation for crypto in 2024, drop me a line. You can send me an email at steffi@financialfox.news, or you can also send me a DM on Twitter or a message on LinkedIn. So, find the best way to reach out to us and join our community. Last things, remember that all the content on the FinancialFox channel is not financial advice. Anything discussed is for informational purposes only, and you always need to do your own research if you are interested in doing any investment. Remember, it's your decision, it's your money, and it's your responsibility to get as many information that can help you to make the best. It's not the best decision, it's the decision that you think is the best and for which you are going to be fully accountable. So this is very important, not just for crypto, for any kind of investment in equity, traditional market, anything that you do, you always need to do your own research. Remember, there is a lot of risk, there is volatility. More you know, a better decision you can make. Hi, Clem, Markus, how are you?
Well, I'm great. Couldn't be better. Things are rocking, and so what can you ask for?
Yeah, I think it's a perfect finish to the year. So it's very exciting. So
okay, that's great. So let's start maybe with this. A great end of the year. What are we gonna expect the market to be in beginning of 2024? Why everybody's so excited? I mean, I am as well, but you tell us, why are we all excited?
I mean, basically, ETF is coming. Everybody's now pretty sure it's coming because they've settled with Binance, which is almost like a seal of approval for crypto in the whole of North America, because it would be quite sensible or predictable that they would want Binance dead. But no, they've accommodated. So that means they're going to accommodate things, and that means ETF, and that's going to drive. And then the halving's coming in March or whenever it is, depending on how fast the miners mine, and that's going to cut the supply by half. So it's bullish. This is always going to have been the bullish time time, and here it is now.
I think I can add I think the trigger was more actually on the inflation, right? And inflation side. And when Fed Chair Powell turned dovish in October, of course, the market interprets this now as more kind of as an ETF signal, but I think it's more kind of like a macro call. And I think you can really time it perfectly to those kind of events because, we had like 5 rallies this year, basically. So the first rally happened in January, right after the inflation data in the US came actually below expectations for the first time, below 7%. Then we had another rally in March of this year. And the rally was based on, the premise of Bitcoin as a new alternative financial system. When the 3 US banks basically went under, there was also a story that a lot of money was moved from Binance, from BUSD into Bitcoin. So that drove the rally. And of course, as Clem said, we heard about the BlackRock ETF already in June. So we had another 20% move in June. But actually this rally fiddled out, right? We were back by September, we were back at the 25,000 level exactly when BlackRock announced it. So basically the market kind of reversed it because the market was expecting months of delay. But what happened then in October is Powell actually turned dovish, and this meant the Fed will not hike interest rates anymore. And this is when we started to really rally by like 50-60% from October until end of November. And then, yes, I agree that in early December, we had like 15-16% rally based on the ETF expectations. But I think the big story is really on inflation, on monetary policy. That is really the key driver here.
So if we are looking at the rise of the crypto market, I mean, we were talking before with Clem about the 4-year cycle and, coming up to the halving. When we are going to see this big drive happening, is before the halving, is after the halving? And also, what are you expecting the top to be? I know we can't call the top, like we can't call the bottom, but I think you might have some expectation what we should expect.
Well, let me say what I think, because I didn't quite call the bottom of Bitcoin, but when it was 60,000, I said it was going to 13, and it went to 18. Sorry about the 5. When it was down at 3, I called 36, I think it was in Forbes, and it went to 60. But sorry about that. So I think that obviously we have seen the bottom and we're now in the vertical. We're in it. So that rise that you see in all these verticals, we're at the beginning of it. In fact, I did something for Seeking Alpha, a chart, and the actual chart we see for the last few months is almost photographically the same as the previous 2021, whatever it was. And it's almost exactly photographically the same as the one before that. So we could be, and there's a high probability that we are in that vertical. Okay, where does it stop? Well, halving, you multiply by 2, right? So it's 120,000. However, Bitcoin becomes quite a heavy asset at that sort of level. It's no longer a little baby thing worth 300 billion, which is like one Walt Disney. All of a sudden, it's the size of Apple, or more than Apple. It's about the biggest asset out there, and so it will be hard for it to actually get up there. So it could easily just stop at 90 or something like that. So if this is the vertical, which is quite a strong possibility, you're looking at, in my book, between 90 and 120, and it'll be interesting to hear what Markus thinks.
So I work a lot with numbers, right? And I base my prediction a lot on numbers, even there is not a lot of history. But so far, the numbers have actually been magically proven out correctly. And, it's all on the record, right? I mean, you can just like Google it. But on February 2nd this year, I predicted we would be at 45,000 by end of this year or by Christmas. So we're slowly like getting there. And I think the ideal time is actually not the halving. The ideal time is 14 to 15 months before the halving. So there is a report that came out in October 28th last year that was saying now is actually the best time. And we were at 15, or we were at 16, 17,000 back then. I think at 17,000. But, and this is why I, agree with Clem, we seem to be in this vertical, and yes, it is a heavy asset. I think it's, we are like 600-700 billion now. So it's not as where Apple is, but it's becoming quite heavy. But what's always interesting is when we went into these halvings, it's not that suddenly the miners said like, hey, we want to have more money, so the Bitcoin price must go up. It's more that the miners actually stopped selling. And I think we're starting to see this as well now, that the miners actually don't sell anymore. And, I have done some analysis about, registered investment advisors. They might be allocating then to a Bitcoin ETF once it's approved. And, I came up with like some estimates of something like, $24 billion could be flowing into just as a 20% of the market cap of precious metals, gold and silver ETFs in the US. But then when you really think about it, moving $10 billion into Bitcoin is actually not that easy, because who's going to sell all those Bitcoins to BlackRock or whoever might come? So I think we might actually be in a period now where the market just ramps because there are just no sellers. And I think this is how we kind of overlap with the halving cycle, because people are going to say like, well, if real money is coming, why should I sell now? And so, to go back to your point, and sorry for going on so long, but on the 22nd of June this year, Bitcoin made a 1-year new high for the first time in 1 year. So this is basically the big bottoming out period. And Bitcoin, of course, is a cyclical asset. But based on this indicator, it would predict that we would go up 300% from that level. So 300% would get us somewhere like around this, 125K that we came out already like in early July based on this indicator. And then also when we look at the last three halving cycles in 2012, 2016, and 2020, as Clem correctly said, we tend to go up 200%. So you just put up 200% times 40,000 or 44,000. So it gets you sort of to like 120,000. It seems overly optimistic, but this is what just the numbers would tell you.
Or you can just say the previous high was 60. There's going to be a halving, so it's going to be 120.
Yeah.
It's an even more basic math.
Yeah. And
it doesn't make it right, but it does make it simple.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So let's look a bit deeper into the crypto market. Obviously, we talk about the Bitcoin ETF. I want to talk a bit about Ethereum. Ethereum hasn't been performing so well like Bitcoin so far. What is your analysis about it, and how do you think they are going to perform and also evolve as well? Because Bitcoin, we know what it does. There is still actually a lot of experimentation happening with ordinals and things, but Ethereum is more like the app layer where you build on, or this is what I have been. Maybe we can talk about DeFi if you think that is going to be a driver. Maybe then we can go into the tokenization, but I think it might be separate subject. So let's stick with Ethereum and let me know, your take on that.
I've got a problem with Ethereum because it's really, as far as I'm concerned, it's centralized. And the strength of Bitcoin is it is not totally decentralized, not as decentralized as some people would like it or say it is, but it is quite decentralized. Whereas the move on Ethereum is more and more centralization, more and more the people that are inside, the oligarchs getting all the good stuff. And that's a natural thread, a natural theme that you're seeing in lots of crypto. Oh, it's decentralized. We put it out into the world, airdrops and all that stuff. And actually, no, we want that money. Give it back to us. Oh no, we're going to change the rules. Oh no, no, it's ours. Because you can understand that. And Ethereum is undergoing that. It's got an amazing, massive brand. The brand value of Ethereum is huge and will keep it important. But underneath that, it's broken. Paying $8-9 for a transaction, $35 for a transaction when you're using something like a bridge. It's just too expensive. I mean, this is going to be cheaper than banking. It's going to be, it's faster and cheaper than banking. It costs nothing. Actually, if you send money with Ethereum at the wrong time of day, it's costing you $10. And, it's way more expensive than banking. The moment you start hitting the EVM, you can be spending $80. That's really, and then it's going to be layer 2s and layer 3s, and we're going to shard, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. So that's what's holding it back because, Matic, 0.01 cent, Binance Chain, 0.01 cent, Solana, blah, 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 blah. Well, you can afford to use those guys. Ethereum, it tears the back of your trousers off every time you use it. So I think that's a major weakness and will be a major headwind for Ethereum. So that's my position.
Well, I think I have quite a similar position from a different perspective. So Ethereum went through 18 upgrades so far, and I think the last 6 were all meaningless. They had no price impact. And in reality, there were only since the launch, there were only 3 impacts, really 3 upgrades that had really good impact, where we had some really strong price performance. Maybe they were timed around, the Bitcoin cycle. But nevertheless, all these upgrades are sort of all meaningless, right? Last year, we had an upgrade the market got excited, the market rallied, then the Ethereum Foundation came out and said like, oh guys, this is not about lowering the gas fees, exactly what Clem was saying. We need to have like lower gas fees so everybody can build like other things around it, right? But I think this year also, when you think how actually revenues on Ethereum has just literally imploded, right? So number one to keep in mind, in November 2021, at the peak of the cycle, it was all about NFTs, right? NFTs minting on Ethereum, and the Ethereum network was making $1.8 billion for that month. Right now, they're making like 100 million. So we are like down almost like, something like 95% or something, right? So we were down like massively because nobody...
It's still not cheap.
It's still not, yeah. Actually, this is the point, right? So I run regression analysis, the price versus the revenue. Well, it would tell me that the fair value of Ethereum should be more kind of like 800, right? Of course, I'm not shorting here, but there's not much real value in it because we still... Like, for example, the Ethereum price is, let's say, down 60% from the high versus revenues are down 90 or 95% from the high. And it's really because the usage has actually literally imploded, right? Not many people are working on it. We didn't really hear anything about, altcoins or anything. This year, when we also had like an upgrade that was supposed to be very important. We used to, we were looking forward to the EIP 4844 upgrade. Well, it was supposed to come this quarter. Well, it's coming now next quarter. So, and so it's all just like pushing out. It seems like, maybe they're not really working on it. Maybe the upgrades are all sort of like meaningless. So it's really difficult where we go. And I think the best indicator to look at this is just the Bitcoin dominance indicator. And this thing just keeps on going up. So you can see how Bitcoin is just outperforming everything. And Bitcoin is supposed to be like the lower beta asset in this environment. So yeah, I'm also very disappointed. And I think, just look at Bitcoin or find alternatives where something is really happening.
Think about Bitcoin, nobody messes with Bitcoin. And you like it or you lump it. Now, when you go to Ethereum, there's a load of young kids who are all geniuses running around with big egos saying, oh, I've invented the future. Oh, no, my invention of the future is more clever than yours. Oh, by the way, we're going to take some of that money for ourselves. Oh, we got this great idea. Oh, we're going to put that, that injects a load of instability. And half the time, they're going to be horribly wrong. So they're going to improve it worse. Like this burning, we're going to make a deflationary Ethereum. Well, they obviously know not that much about markets to realize the moment you tighten liquidity on an asset, its value drops. So deflationary economies are ones that don't move. The whole point about inflation, why governments love it, is it makes people run around screaming, doing stuff. Whereas deflation makes everyone sit on their hands. I'm not going to spend my money. Oh no, it's going to go up in value. Oh no, I'll sit here and I'll eat gruel and wear woolly jumpers and not turn the heat on. Yeah, that's what deflation does.
Yeah, that's a really good point because I wrote a report earlier this year how everybody got so excited about Ethereum is going to become like the new treasury bond, right? It's going to be so exciting. I mean, who is in crypto for treasury bonds, right? I mean, is this if staking is really the hottest thing, I mean, come on, who is in crypto because staking is like so cool, right? I mean, it's just like parking your money and getting like some yield for it. I mean, this is just like, that's kind of like the disappointing part here.
Totally agree. And the other thing about the whole idea is it's understood by all the PhDs in economics and all the Nobel Prize winners, the best level of inflation is between 2 and 3%. They taught me that when I was a little boy at school. 2 to 3% inflation, creeping inflation, is good for economies. So you don't want to be deflationary. You get Japan. You need to 2 or 3% inflation to actually have a thriving economy. So deflationary currencies are bad.
So my question would be about DeFi, decentralized finance. Where is it going to happen if we are not so confident with Ethereum?
DeFi's dead. The Koreans killed it. The North Koreans.
No, I think what you're seeing now is, I think you're seeing now how the banks and the engineers within a lot of the TradFi banks, they seem to be leapfrogging DeFi and just really walking, I would say almost walking all over them, right? Because they're coming up with their own system, their own integration, and all this stuff that we heard like a year or two ago, of course, that DeFi is going to, or 3 years ago, that DeFi, that finance has to adjust to crypto and really, to be part of it, otherwise left behind. I think what we're seeing now, some banks issuing their own currencies and we're seeing some bonds issued on banks' private blockchains. So I wonder if kind of like crypto has been sort of like in this hibernation winter and not really, everybody keeps on saying like, oh yeah, we keep on, developing through the winter, but I don't see like any exciting projects, right? I mean, look at this bull market. And, with Bitcoin is up, 165% this year, we are in a new bull market. I mean, no doubt. But I think all these previous bull markets, especially the last one, we could point to like a clear DeFi or a clear non-Bitcoin theme, right, that was developing, right? I mean, of course, 2017, we had, of course, the ICOs, right, as a new form of money raising. And of course, then we had DeFi summer in 2021. And then, of course, we had also the NFT craze. I mean, what's going on now, right? I mean, we cannot point to Solana. I mean, Solana was almost also dead until, the break point in October, right, the conference. Before, Solana didn't really do much. So, I mean, what's really going on? And I think, you can point to Matic, right? I mean, a year ago, Matic had all these, NFT contracts with, Starbucks and everything. So I think there was a story to be told there. But of course, you look at the Matic price, didn't really do much either, right? So this bull market is really all about, Bitcoin, and, nobody cares about all this other stuff. And I think you can make an argument as, okay, the on-ramp is very difficult, right? Because you have dismantled a lot of the retail-focused lending and borrowing platforms, especially in the US. So the on-ramp is difficult. You have dismantled, Silvergate and Silicon Valley Bank and so on. So there the on-ramp is very difficult. So the only on-ramp you really have in size is, is of course your friendly Deltec Bank or Union Bank. So
and your off-ramp is almost impossible.
Yeah, as you have learned from Binance, right? Your off-ramp out of BUSD means you just move it into BTC, right? So yeah, everything is just sort of in this ecosystem where, where not much seems to be happening, right? I mean, there's no big breakthroughs. I mean, we heard about the Solana phone a year ago, then it came out. I think they sold something like 600 or 2,000 or whatever it is. I mean, it's just not much, right? I mean, they could have bought 100,000 phones with, with their own treasury money, something, right? So in the end, there's just not much happening. Unfortunately, I think we all want something that is happening, but nothing is really happening.
My thing with DeFi is, and Steffi will know this because she was kind of, in the area when it was happening. I live in Monaco, right? So I deal in Monaco-sized money. I had Monaco-sized money in DeFi. Now I look back at it and go, it's completely insane. I dodged so many bullets. I dodged BlockFi. I dodged Celsius. I had so many bullets. Every single one of those big bullets I dodged. Just, because I know what I'm doing. But I got out with the skin of my teeth. And, I'm not prepared to have more than 6 figures in crypto these days because you're surrounded by robbers every turn. And that's the huge Achilles heel in crypto is that the robbers are everywhere. If it's not North Koreans, if it's not people sending you poison tokens to your wallet, if it's not people phishing your email, if it's not, the list, it goes on. It's like living in the Wild West and not being a gunfighter. So, I mean, I think that is really bad for DeFi because basically you've got to deal in big lumps. Oh, I'll put 100 grand and I'll get 4% there. Oh, well, I'll do this and I'll do that and I'll pop it in there and I'll pop it out. Big numbers. And then some North Korean comes and takes it all, or some multi-chain runs off with your money. I mean, not many people can go 7 figures in that sort of environment because it's just like walking down some dark alley in a bad part of town with your Rolex hanging off your wrist.
Yeah. Okay, so basically, going to be lots of challenging for Ethereum and all the other altcoins because that's the other thing that I want to touch before we get into tokenization. So we established Bitcoin, we established that Ethereum is going to have some challenges. What about Matic? What about Algorand? What about Compound? What about Arbitrum? What about these altcoins? They had a great 2022.
Well, we bridge Umbria, who I work with. Bridge a lot of these chains, and the chains of importance are Polygon outside of Ethereum. Ethereum's the big kahuna. Then it goes Polygon, Binance Chain, Arbitrum, and then you go Optimism, wobble, wobble, wobble. Avalanche, wobble, wobble, wobble. Yeah. Phantom dead. Phantom got hacked basically by multi-chain. So you've got ETH, you've got Binance Chain, you got Polygon, and you got Arbitrum. They're the ones that move. They're the ones that with people going backwards and forwards. So they're the ones. And to me, it all comes down to how much does it cost me to do that? Oh, 0.001 of a cent. Oh, I'll have some of that. Oh, $4.65 to send you some USDC. Really? So Ethereum's got that problem. The other guys are, reasonable to transact. Although I don't think $1's much. Some people do. So, the closer it is to 1 cent from $1, the better. But when you go over $1, that's material money to some people.
When I kind of analyzed all these different bull markets, previously, I think the the projects that raised near the peak of the 2017 market, they did actually much better, and they had a chance to come back because they didn't spend the money yet. But if you would have raised the money in, let's say, early 2016, you have spent it all already, and you had no more firepower. And when then the bear market came after the peak 2017, basically you just ran out of money and you never came back. And I think this is almost like very similar now, that all these tokens that have really, enjoyed this bull market, this 21 bull market, and sort of like, came out in 2019 and 20, they probably just burned a lot of money. They probably supported their own token on the way down, and they might never come back. And I think when you look very, very carefully, we can of course forget now what happened in 21, but basically DeFi peaked in April 21 and it did not come back. So Bitcoin made a new high in September, October, and then peaked out in November. But this was all based on Ethereum, which was rallying because of the NFT story. So, but I think the message is, if something, is really, if a project raises close to the peak, they get the money and then they don't have the time to spend it yet. So they have a long leeway or a long runway. Versus if somebody raises it, of course, they go all in, they make probably like corporate, mistakes. So I think this is really like unfortunate, because I think 2 years ago, we could have, made a great story how maybe Bitcoin becomes a little bit irrelevant and all these stories again, right? The story with like Matic, Matic actually, I got this like sort of like wrong, because I was quite positive on it this year, but it hasn't really done too well, right? And I thought there is more integration, around the NFT space with all these, corporate partners. And I don't know, maybe it's a sort of like, the marketing team, or there is just something, that is not relevant. So unfortunately, I just go back to a Bitcoin and say like, well, I mean, here you have a narrative that seems to be working.
Well, if you think about the way that the stock market works, the theory says buy the index because you can't beat the index by active management. Well, in a way, Bitcoin is an index because it's not got people messing around with it. It's just a piece of code that does that. So it's almost like it's not humans, right? And then you go to these other ones and it's, I'm a genius. I know everything. I'm going to do this. Oh, I'm a different genius. I got different ideas. I'm going to do that. So they're a bit like active managers, and active managers are likely to be less successful than something that's just mechanical. So I think that the issue with all these other things is that they're not decentralized. They're not just pieces of code. They are people who are hot and cold, smart, right and wrong, good and bad, up and down. And that sort of human nature has a cost. And that's why you see Bitcoin just grinds on, and why you see there's much more narrative with the stuff that is much more to do with if someone's clever or right or wrong.
Okay, so last question. There is a lot going on with tokenization. What I wanted to ask you is, how do you see the value of new token and the tokenization developing in next year? Are we going to see a big boom of token as well? And I mean, for some, there is an element of regulation as well, because some will be security tokens. But I would like to hear from you, where do you see it going?
So I think next year, I think we see several games being launched. I mean, I know some of the games have been like in, work in progress for the last 2-3 years. I think that's going to be, a big story. Otherwise, again, I think also with projects, it has been surprisingly quiet. When you think about that, crypto raised something like 60 billion in 2020 and in 21 in terms of from VC capital. And, all we have seen really is like Aptos, earlier this year. So it's, again, I think the critique here is like, what has all happened to the VC money? Where are these projects that really integrate with finance and making, everybody's, lives easier? So that is really like my critique. And I think also the whole tokenization of, let's say, treasury bonds or tokenization of like yield products, I think that is not really the real killer app, right? I think what we're seeing, of course, I think next year we're going to see like several CBDC projects. It's difficult to see how you can make money of those, but I think we're lacking a lot of those real stories. And I think the only thing I can really see on the horizon is that a lot of gaming tokens are going to be launched. So I think there's going to be a lot of marketing around it, because they received a lot of VC capital, and those games are going to be ready then for release next year.
Well, I'm going to make a huge amount of money out of the answer to this question. So the answer is there's a missing piece. And the missing piece is, who's the custodian? So I'm going to tokenize stamps. I'm going to tokenize racehorses. I'm going to tokenize Ferraris, old Ferraris. I'm going to tokenize Picassos, right? Who's the custodian of the Picassos? Who's looking after the racehorses? So custody is the big core middle part of this. And as long as you've got a custodian that's not going to, turn your racehorses into dog food or bury your Ferraris or steal your Picassos, you're in the game. You can tokenize all that stuff, and that's a mechanism that's well understood. And you see, I'm just terrified about having any reasonable amount of money in crypto right now because the Norks will come around and rob me. So I prefer to be in good old-fashioned equities. So guess what? There's an equity called Backed, BKKT. That's a spin-off of the New York Stock Exchange, i.e. ICE, and it's a crypto custodian. And it's peanuts. Its value is peanuts. It was $40. Today, it's $2. I recommended it at $1.29 in Forbes and in Seeking Alpha only a few days ago. And it's a spin-out of the New York Stock Exchange, i.e. ICE. It's a proper company run by proper people. There's not many Tonys in that business, right? And it's a custodian, and it's listed, so you can buy the share. You don't need any ETFs. And it's at, 1/20th of its value at the high 2 years ago. So you can buy an equity of a custodian, which is custodians being the very key piece to tokenization. Well, there you go. So, custody is the big thing. Custody. And if someone's called Joe Bloggs' custody, take all my money, look after it for me, will you, mate? Or you can go to spin out the New York Stock Exchange and say, oh, you've been doing custody, you and your mob, for a couple of 100 years. Would you mind looking after my stuff for me? You're probably going to, come out all right, aren't you? So if you can buy their stock at a market cap of 500 million, I think that's what their market cap is, dollars, not even pounds. And, so you're buying into the Bitcoin explosion in an equity that's a spin out of the New York Stock Exchange. So there we are. And I guess I do own a lot.
Yeah, interesting angle, Clem. Completely agree on the custody, and thank you for the tip anyway. So,
advice. I'm just telling you what I've done.
Exactly. All the content here, it's never been for investment advice. You always have to do your own research. It's your responsibility. We repeat that all the time on this podcast.
EKKT is the ticker on the NYSE in America.
So maybe we can close with, just a few things about 2024. What are you expecting? If you want to give a message to our viewers, a brief message, that's the time.
Follow me on my new research site, 10x-research.com. Just recently set up. Otherwise, I also wrote a book about the crypto markets, Crypto Titans. I think for next year, I think we probably we peak out by December next year. That's kind of what my cycle analysis was indicating. The quantitative analysis that I do, and also kind of it would fit with a 6 months after the halving peak. So, and historically, again, when, it's a big macro market as well, when the Fed stopped hiking interest rates, crypto tended to rally. When in 2017, the CME futures were launched, from the moment it was announced until they actually started trading, we had 180%, rally. So I think it just looks still all bullish, wherever we are with prices. So I still remain bullish, but I do think the ETF might be a little bit delayed. I don't think it's going to happen in January. I think it's going to happen then, a few months after. So I would caution a little bit if we go into the new year.
Well, I always have this advice that I learned off a gold miner, of all things. And, I was standing in a river with him with a gold pan. And he said, if you think it's gold, it isn't. If you know it's gold, it is. And that's what I always use when I'm thinking about investment. If you think Bitcoin's going to the moon, it's a good thing to do, to, take some sensible positions. If you don't know, but it might be, do you think it's going to the moon? Don't go near it. Yeah, because you've got to have in your mind a clear picture of where you're going. So you're not waking up at 2 a.m. every morning going, what's the Bitcoin price? What's the Bitcoin price? Okay. I think it's going up a lot. Do I want to hold Bitcoin? No, because I don't want to hold anything that, the North Koreans can get, but I can hold it in equities. So I've looked into the areas that are equity based, that I can get my leverage out of that. And I've already said what my favorite one is. But my look at it is, do it through equities. So what are the people in the equity space which will reflect what Bitcoin does? Well, obviously Coinbase is one. I don't have any of those. And so on and so forth. So I would and am trading it through equities, not through crypto. I mean, I've got crypto, but I mean, as I said, I don't like to have anything more than 6 figures in crypto because it's just too spicy. It's just not secure. That's what I mean. It's like having, $500,000 under your bed. I mean, some people do, but I wouldn't because, somebody might decide they want to come and look under your bed. So getting back to custody. So the custody issue is a big deal to me now. It wasn't a couple of years ago, but I was lucky not to, lose a yacht on that. And I see custody as the big hairy deal, and equities. Obviously, there's no problems with custody with equities. So that's where I've looked, and that's how I'm playing this run.
Thank you so much, everyone. And I wish you a good holiday, and looking forward to 2024.
Thanks very much, Steffi.
Thank you.